Deleted Session, November 5th, 1973. Ron noted that Monday's session for October 29 was held for Sue Watkins and George Rose. There was but little said about Jane's progress in it, except for a footnote at the end. Jane's progress has been steady for the past 2 weeks, however, and is in keeping with that described in earlier sessions. They said, "Now, good evening. The work in progress is already assured because of inner physical events now occurring. These are following their own course, but some exterior improvement in that area should very shortly be showing. Other adjustments are being made first to ensure overall balance and coordination as work is being done on the knees, leg muscles, and feet. Otherwise, too much strain is thrown upon other areas of the body, which then must compensate. Ruber should try again not to concentrate on the working area, to take it for granted it is being taken care of. The soreness that sometimes occurs in joints is due to their activation, will not last, and should be accepted in that light. The few minutes for badminton are important, and gently familiarize Ruber with the sense of quicker motion. Give us a moment." His remark following receipt of the check brought up the final clarification of beliefs. The connections were given as stated also. Ron noted here Seth refers to the check for $7,500 that Jane recently received from Prentice Hall as half her payment for the paperback rights of Seth Speaks. Jane wrote on the check's envelope that the money represented a final payment to me, etc. They said the area of concentration now, however, should be not upon the body, but upon daily living, his writing and your plans. Ron noted the nature of, they said, personal reality quite assures your financial situation for some time to come. One point I want to mention. Ruber's mother tried to escape poverty through the calculated, unrelenting use of her beauty, and it did not work. Ruber, in his own way, tried to escape poverty through the use of his brains, and he was afraid that that was not going to work either. Ruber's brains, however, gave him much more leeway than his mother's beauty gave her, and his intellect came with a counterpart, an intuitional and psychic counterpart that enriched it and kept it from becoming bitter or even ingrown. At the same time, the early beliefs were there and were mentioned to some extent along with other issues. This also had to do with the unremitting purpose of work. In the meantime, his intellect and intuitive abilities both discovered that the daily joy of living was important as work or money. For a time, however, a conglomeration of beliefs merged, so that he felt that he had to drive himself unremittingly, and this meant to him imposing disciplines as given earlier. The fears of time, the early fears that made him want to escape poverty, the feeling that all eggs must be put in one basket, and his reaction to you and your circumstances, these were all connected. In his 20s, he could well combine the idea of little money with his writing because he realized it might be that kind of profession. But he became frightened as the years passed. I am simply putting this in consecutive fashion. emphasizing certain points for convenience sake now. The check, even in those terms, you see, was important. It is being assimilated along those lines that he will be able to feel completely free from that particular kind of long-term charge reaction. He realizes well now that money is not all that important, yet the old beliefs were so entangled that he had to prove to himself that it was not so important after he achieved it. Otherwise, he would always tell himself that he believed money basically unimportant because he was not able to achieve it. I want it understood that money was not the primary goal, that his early drive to escape his environment was based on the false idea that worth was dependent upon your status. Being a writer would give him status even if he did not make money, though he hoped to. The development of his psychic abilities frightened him, for the very simple reason that in his mind, a psychic did not have the same kind of status. The writing abilities were always one manifestation of his own strong psychic nature, however, and his growth as a personality required the merging of both if even the writer was to succeed. All of this has been happening, Ram noted intensely. Seth said his improvements are the natural result of a synthesis of personality and abilities and a reorganization of beliefs. Raise your hand or take a break. Now, you had built-in status in Rupert's eyes, simply because you were an artist. Status did not imply so much a place in society as a place of self. It held one to some extent aloof from society, being by nature an inbuilt superiority. Carried too far, such an idea can lead to an isolationism in which only work is important, and the daily joys experienced by others become unimportant and trivial. The very intuitive feelings behind the writer image were based upon the mysticism of nature, the joy of creaturehood, and yet pursued with too much literal-mindedness. The determination to write, once equated with work, led to important denials in those precise areas. A concentration upon your plans, daily life, writing, and free psychic activity will best now allow the body to continue its improvements without being watched at every moment. All suggestions as given should be continued. I will not give you definite recommendations as to what you should do now. There should be some alterations, however, changes simply to mark the end of one era and the beginning of another, even if it is but a brief vacation or series of small trips. By all means, both of you should rejoice in the improvements as they occur. The feeling of trust emphasized will help Rupert so that he does not become too impatient. When you go out in public, he immediately thinks in terms of absolutes, and feels himself inadequate as a result, and his improvements seem trivial in comparison to what he wants. A clear understanding of the point of power will clear that up. That seeming discrepancy between what he wants and what he has. The improvements constantly show him that what he has is changing for the better, and ever approaching the flexibility he wants. I suggest your bars, and I bid you a fond good evening, unless you have questions. Rose said, no, I guess not. Seth said, I still have a session next week, Lem. Once more, remember the badminton. Rose said, okay, good night, Seth, and thank you.